Hey guys, Mrs. Sands here. So today we are on lesson 7 and we will be using formulas to find the volume of cylinders, cones, and spheres. So you'll see that today really isn't too tough of a day. As long as you know the name of the shape, you can find the correct formula and substitute in numbers. So you do now is at the top of page 30. If you could work on that, and then I'll go over it in a minute. So most of us remember how to find the volume of a rectangular prism without having to even use our formula sheet, right? Volume equals length times width times height. Honestly, the formula sheet, the only formula they give us for a volume of a prism is V equals capital BH. So you would need to know that the length times the width is actually your capital B. So we will do 10 times 8 times 3, and you get 240, and that's millimeters cubed because it's volume. So when we do a triangular prism, we need to know that the shape of the base is a triangle. Therefore, the area of the base would be 1/2 base times height. Remember, we look for this right angle here, and we know that the base and the height both happen to be 4. So 1/2 of 4 times 4 is 8. Don't forget this height. That's the height of the prism, which is 8. And 8 times 8 is 64. So it's 64 cubic feet. And that's what we've done so far. Today, we'll talk about cylinders, cones, and spheres. So a cylinder kind of looks like a soda can, right, or a soup can. And the formula for volume of a cylinder is pi r squared h. So the pi r squared looks familiar, right? Pi r squared is area of a circle, and h is because a cylinder is like um, a bunch of circles piled on top of each other. It has a height to it. So we really find area of the base and times by the height. So I'm surprised actually that they give us the formula on our reference sheet. Right, on our reference sheet, they do tell us that volume of a cylinder is pi r squared times height. They really could have still used this V equals capital BH because the base is a circle and the area of a circle is pi r squared. But they were being kind to us and they gave us everything. But really, we are still doing that formula. So a right cylinder is shown below whose radius is 5 centimeters and whose height is 12 centimeters. Answer the following questions. What is the volume of the cylinder to the nearest cubic centimeter? Nearest cubic centimeter, remember, means whole number. So we write down the formula, which is V equals pi r squared h. So we are going to do pi times 5 squared, right? The radius is 5, times the height, which is 12. And then when you calculate that, you get, let's see, what's my handy dandy calculator? Pi times 5 squared times 12 to the nearest whole number would be 942. Do you agree? So it's about 942 centimeters cubed. That's it. That's how you find volume of a cylinder. Number 2. A water bowl for pets is designed in the shape of a cylinder that has a diameter of 14 inches and a depth of 6 inches. Determine the volume of the water bowl to the nearest cubic inch. So volume equals pi r squared h pi times, well, if the diameter is 14, then the radius is 7, and the height of this water bowl is 6. Use your calculator. and do pi times 7 squared times 6 to the nearest cubic inch means to the nearest whole number. So it's about 924. And that would be cubic inches. There's another part to this. It says that the company that sells the water bowl states that it holds 4 gallons of water. It holds 4 gallons of water. And they tell me a conversion right here. If there are 231 cubic inches of water per gallon, that means 231 inches cubed actually equals 1 gallon of water. That's what they're trying to tell us. They want us to evaluate how accurate their claim is. So it's supposed to hold 4 gallons of water. Well, if 1 gallon is 231 cubic inches, then couldn't I multiply that 231 by 4 to find 4 gallons? Right? If I want to know what 4 gallons is, can I say, okay, to go from here to here, I multiply by 4? So from here to here, I can multiply by 4? Does that make sense to you? If 1 gallon is 231 cubic inches, then 4 gallons would be 4 times that. So what is 231 times 4? It's 924. So how accurate are they? Yeah, they were like exact, right? 231 times 4 tells me how many cubic inches are in 4 gallons. And this 924 is the same as that 924. So evaluate how accurate their claim is. They were exactly right. Their claim is perfect. The claim is accurate. And that is how you find volume of a cylinder. Now we're going to move on to a cone. Do you see that a cone is kind of similar to a cylinder? Take a look. If I like drew these lines straight up and had like a circle here, wouldn't you agree that a cone fits inside of a cylinder? Yeah, it does. So that's how come the formula looks so similar. Do you see this pi r squared h just like the cylinder? It just has this 1/3 on it. And that's because a cone takes up 1/3 the amount of space as a cylinder does. One way of kind of thinking about it is my picture that I drew. Doesn't it look like there's kind of like 3 sections here? Like there's a section here, a section here, and a section here. And isn't one out of the 3 sections colored in? It is like 1/3 of the volume. So it's not something that you're ever going to have to prove to me, but it's nice to understand. And they have the formula right here for you. Volume equals 1/3 pi r squared h. So a cone is shown below with a radius of 10 and a height of 24. I'm just going to erase my stuff here. Find the volume of the cone to the nearest hundredth of a cubic inch. So we write down our formula. And we just have to be careful when we're using our calculator. That's really the only hard part about this unit. As long as you can find the right formula, it actually is pretty easy. So they told us the radius was 10, and they told us the height was 24, and then we use our calculator. Your calculator, definitely like the ones that you borrow from me, can do fractions. So if we enter in 1/3 pi, I really want you doing this with me, by the way, not just copying my stuff. You got to practice using that calculator. 10 in parentheses squared, and then 24 in parentheses. Anytime I substitute in a number, I always put in parentheses. And then it makes sure that the calculator understands what I'm trying to type in. So I'm going to write down the whole thing. 2513, well, I'm going to write down some of it. 2513 point, my calculator goes away when I write, 2741.23, 2741.23. Just going to double check myself. Yep. Okay. I have to round to nearest hundredth. Remember, hundredths places. You got to be careful, please. Hundredth. This is tenths. This is hundredths. So I look at that number. So it's 2,513.27 inches cubed. And that's how you do volume of a cone. So let's do this problem about a paper cup that's in the shape of a cone, whose base diameter is 8 centimeters and whose height is 9. Find the volume of the cone to the nearest cubic centimeter. Nearest cubic centimeter, remember that would be like a whole number. So we write down the formula, 1/3 pi r squared h. In place of r, well, they told us the diameter was 8, so the radius must be 4. And the height is 9. And then just use your calculator carefully. You do it too, because you know I make mistakes. So I got to the nearest cubic centimeter, it would be 151. Did you get that too? Good. 151 centimeters cubed, because I needed to the nearest whole number. Excellent. There's a part B though. So the volume of most drink containers in the United States is measured in fluid ounces. There are 29.6 cubic centimeters per fluid ounce. So 29.6 centimeters cubed is equal to 1 fluid ounce. I want to know how many fluid ounces does this cup hold to the nearest ounce. So I'm going to show you like another way now that we can do things when we're doing conversions. You could always make a proportion. I love proportions. I like to say something like 29.6 cubic centimeters over 1 fluid ounce equals, and now on this side I'll put the cubic centimeters in the top because my units need to match, and the fluid ounces in the bottom. And I look back now at my answer from up above, and it was 151 cubic centimeters. So the 151 actually goes in my numerator, because that's where my cubic centimeters are right now. Now I'm trying to figure out the fluid ounces, so I'm going to put an X there. And now I could do my cross products. Right, so I feel like I'm already reviewing with you for your final exam. We did proportions earlier in the year. So 29.6, I'm going to leave off my units right now and just do 29.6 times x, and that would equal 1 times 151, which really means if I'm solving for x, I'm going to divide by 29.6. And then you can use your calculator. And 151 divided by 29.6 is that. So I'm going to write out the whole thing. 5.101, 5.101, 351, 351. It asks how many fluid ounces does this cup hold to the nearest ounce? So whole number that is. So about 5 fluid ounces. So you could see in today's lesson, we're finding volumes, but then we're applying it to something. So we have one more thing to do, and it's volume of a sphere. So a sphere is like a basketball. Volume is 4/3 pi r cubed. So if we use that formula, we just have to plug in the numbers correctly. The radius, you could see halfway across, is 24. And do you see in this problem, the radius is cubed. It's like our only formula where we do radius cubed. And we want it to the nearest cubic inch, which remember is like a whole number. So do it on your calculator, please. And to the nearest whole number, I get 57,905. 57,905. And that's cubic inches. And that's it. That's volume of a sphere. So let's take a look at what comes below. So a tent has the shape of a hemisphere. So that's half of a circle. Half of a sphere, I mean. Shown below with a diameter, a base diameter of 10. How tall is the tallest person who can stand upright in a tent? So if we were to put a person right in the center, how tall could that person be? So if all the way across here is 10, doesn't that mean if the sphere went this way, all the way across would also be 10? And then half a sphere would be kind of like the radius. So if the diameter is 10, then the radius is 5. So if there was a person standing here, they could, the tallest they could be would be 5 feet. Because it's really like the radius of this hemisphere. Then it asks how much floor area to the nearest square foot does the tent have? Floor area. Let's use our common sense. One quick announcement before the end of the day. So floor area, it's like where you sleep. You only sleep here on the ground, and that ground is a circle. So floor area was kind of like your hint, area of a circle. Area is pi r squared. So I'm not finding the volume yet of this hemisphere. I'm just finding the area of the floor, pi r squared. Pi times 25, really. Which is, to the nearest square foot, would be about 79 square feet. Finally, what is the volume inside the tent? So if I find volume inside the tent, I'm really finding like how much air, I guess, is in the tent. So remember, volume of a whole sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. But this is only a hemisphere, right? 4/3 pi r cubed, but it's only half of a sphere. So at the end, we will divide by 2. So let's plug in these numbers. We'll do 4/3 pi. Remember, the radius was 5, and then we'll divide by 2. Do that on your calculator. So you could see I entered it in my calculator here, 4/3 pi times 5 cubed, and then divide by 2. Rounded to the nearest cubic foot, 262 cubic feet. And that's it. So use these notes to help you do your homework. You have 2 pages of homework, but you can see it's pretty straightforward just using the formula. And anything that has some sort of application, like when we were converting here to find out about gallons, or this one, fluid ounces, just be careful, and you could always do it using a proportion. I'll see you soon. See you, bye.